Hey everyone, welcome to my tutorial on Perfect. So for those of you who don't know, Perfect is a Swift framework that allows you to write server-side Swift. Basically, we'll be able to set up a server and do all the server things in Xcode written in Swift. So that's really convenient and it's pretty easy. All you're going to need for now is Perfect. And you can get that on GitHub for, right now we're on version 1.0, but for you future people, people watching this in the future, there might be different versions. Keep in mind, things might be a little bit different. For now, release 1.0, you can clone it from the terminal. For some reason I didn't get the right version when I did that. It was easier for me to come here and download it in the zip file. So choose your choice. Anyways, make a folder. I like to make a folder. Keeps things clean. Name it Perfect Test. Doesn't matter what you name it. Put the Perfect framework inside. So now, once you've done that, let's go over to Xcode and start a workspace. I'm going to name it Perfect Test Space. I'm going to put it in the same folder and save it. So now we have our workspace. We're on a good start here. So we're going to make a project, a Cocoa Framework project next, and I'm going to name it Perfect Project. Make sure it's Swift, next, and what we have to make sure is that we add it to our current workspace. Create a Git repository? Sure, why not? Create. Now what we have to do is add some files, and this is when we're going to add our perfect stuff. So we're going to add perfect lib, in perfect lib, find the perfect lib project, add it. Do the same thing for perfect server. So perfect test, perfect 1.0, perfect server Xcode project. Now we're going to select our perfect project and we're going to add the library perfect lib osx. Make sure it's that one, press add. Make sure the target for our perfect project is selected, and we're going to go over to build settings and we're going to change a few things to get things working. So one thing we're going to change is deployment location, change that to yes. We're going to go down here to installation build products location. We're going to change that to $, configuration underscore build underscore dir. And we're going to change the installation directory here to /perfect libraries. And the final thing we're going to change is skip install, no thank you. And one last thing to get things ready is we go to the edit scheme here. In run info executable, we're going to select perfect server HTTP application and make sure the shared button here is selected. Now we're ready to go. So we're going to run it, and if we've done everything good so far, then the perfect server thing should appear, and that'll tell us that we've done a satisfactory job. So there we go. On by default, it'll be running on server port 8181 on localhost. If this doesn't work for you, maybe rewatch the video, get on Google, good luck. Sorry. Now that we've had things go, things are on the right track here, okay? But nothing's going to happen with our server. We didn't do anything yet. So what we have to do is add a file to our perfect project, a Swift file, and we have to call it perfect handlers. Pretty sure. If I can spell, handlers.swift. Might be request handlers. Perfect, will do for now. Erase foundation. Not sure foundation's really going to work on the server. Import perfect lib. That's what we're going to use. There's one function that the server looks for There's a couple. There's one function the server looks for when doing things, and that is the perfect server module init function. It's in this function that we are going to handle the requests. So to start this process, we go to routing.handler.register globally. And now we're going to decide what we want to do with our requests, basically. So routing.routes, and in here we're going to say first what type of request we're expecting. So let's say we're expecting some kind of GET request here, and we're expecting it to be at the path yo, give me a something. That's a very long path. I suggest you don't do that. Regardless, we're going to put a closure here, describe, and it's going to return the class which we want the server to use to handle the request. But we didn't make that class yet, so let's just go do that. So we're going to make a class, spell it. We'll call this one get something request handler here, and we're going to, so we have to subclass request handler because that's what it's looking for. It's looking for a class that subclasses request handler, and the request handler has a required function called function handle request, and it gives you two parameters that you get to use when you're handling the request. We're not really going to do anything right now. We're just going to write back to the request. So response, we're going to respond to the request, and we're just going to write, here, you asked for something, I gave you something. And we're going to end the response by calling this function request call completed callback. We're going to go back up here to our routing stuff, and we're going to return the get something request handler, and that looks good. So let's run it. Wait, I'm pretty sure we want to be running the perfect server HTTP application, and now it looks good. So I like to use Postman for this kind of testing here, these sending URL requests or HTTP requests. If you have something else you like to use, go for it. It's all going to work the same. But if you don't, I highly recommend Postman. It works great, nice UI, you know, easy. So we're going to send a GET request to, see, this is why you don't want to put a long URL, because now I don't remember what it was. All right, here we go. Let's give me something. Send it, and we got it back. Oh, no, we didn't, because yo, give me something. Give me a something. See this, you know. All right. Send, here, you asked for something, I gave you something. So right here, we see that so far our server is in fact doing something. We are doing a good job. We are on the right track. So if something's still not working, again, Google is your friend. So now that we know that the server is working and we can handle requests, we're going to build a small project, but something that will actually do something. We're going to connect to a MySQL database. So here we're adding the MySQL connector to our project, and then we're going to link the library to our project so that we can import it into our perfect handlers file. Right now I'm talking over the recorded video from yesterday, because yesterday I talked over the entire thing, and I had trouble explaining things properly while doing it at the same time. So now I sped up the footage, and now I'm going to talk over it and try and explain what I'm doing. And hopefully that way you'll get a better understanding of what it is I'm doing and a little bit about Perfect. So if you don't know MySQL, then I'm going to link a tutorial in the description. But right now I'm setting up some constants to connect to the database and to the table and to the MySQL user. And this is, now I'm writing a function that will create our database, create create the database, create the table, just so we know that there is something to connect to. And we're going to call this function in our perfect server module in it. That way we'll know that it's created when we go to handle the requests. So this project is going to be on GitHub, this whole workspace, along with the link to this tutorial. So you can go download it if you want to play with it, or if so you don't have to copy all the code that you're watching. If you want to have this for yourself, I suggest that you go get it and then you play around with it, change it up, and then before you know it, you'll just be able to do it yourself super easily, and then you can build it into your own projects. In the future, I plan on making some more perfect videos as I continue to play with it and learn about it. There's a lot you can do with perfect. You can do basically everything that you can do with a server. So maybe go into making some websites or some cool things like that. So look out for those. Here I'm writing a function that will handle the response that we get when we query our MySQL tables. To get your results in perfect, you have to access a MySQL variable called store results, and it sends back all the information for the rows that you got back, but it's not in JSON format. So I wrote a quick thing that uses part of the JSON library in perfect to change it to a nice readable JSON to return back to respond to the request with. You could also use another framework like SwiftJSON, or there is more ways to handle JSON in perfect, but this is a quick function I wrote that keeps things simple when we're handling requests, so we don't have to handle all the JSON in each request. And now I'm writing I'm setting up the classes here. We're going to write 3 responses. One's going to send back all the messages, one's going to send back all the messages for each author, and one is going to actually post a message to the database. And so the table that we made in the create database function is going to have 2 fields. It's just going to have a field for the message and a field for the author. We're going to keep it really simple just so we can focus more on connecting to the database, getting the response, and sending it back. So you're going to see that in each request there's actually quite a bit of code going on, but the vast majority of the code is just sending back errors. And the reason we do it so often is because when we're debugging, it's nice to get errors back that are more specific and will narrow down where things went wrong. That's why we're putting a guard statement and checking after almost everything we do. And that's what's making it look very long. So here I'm changing the results that we get back from the MySQL. I'm using the function results to JSON that we wrote earlier to change it into something JSON that we can send, that we can respond back with. As you can see there, I put in the 2 fields that are in the table, message and author. That'll make things nice and easy for us. And so now, going down to handle the request for when we want to send back the messages for all the messages given a specific author name. So that'll add another element to our request. Basically, first we have to, in our query, instead of just selecting all from the table name, we're going to select all with the author's name. So what this forces us to learn is just how to check, how to get parameters from a request, and then use that in our queries. And so as you can see, we can just access a variable on the request, a parameter called param, and we just put in the parameter. So perfect handles a lot of these things that normally we'd have to really deal with. But really all we have to do is just access things that perfect provides us, which is really it's what makes you. It's what I enjoy using this framework for those reasons. You just have to learn, and I'm still learning a lot about what things you can do with the framework and not. And again, you can see that most of the code here is just guard statements sending back, making sure that things went well, so that we can continue doing things, and so that we can send back a more specific error. And so, as you can tell throughout this video, I am expecting you to know Swift and know MySQL and stuff. I'm not really diving into explaining most of the topics that are going over. This video, the objective for this video is really just to kind of like a quick walkthrough on setting up your perfect server, and then from there you go on and learn kind of by yourself, really, like command clicking through the different parts of the framework, or at least that's how I like to learn frameworks. It helps to get the basics going, so you can actually start building things and see what happens, and then after that point, you can kind of find your own way with Stack Overflow and Google. And so now finally we're handling the last request we're going to do today, and that is a post request. So this is when we're actually going to put messages into the database here, and again we're just accessing the parameters here with with paramza. It sends all the different parameters that are added with the request, and so we're using those. We're assuming that the first one is a message and the second one is an author. You can do more error checking there. That is recommended for if you're actually planning on using the code you're writing right now in some kind of production. But here again, we're just playing around, seeing what we can do. And so here you can see that we're going to insert the message and the author that we got from the request parameters into the query to post into the table. So that's a pretty standard procedure, I guess, for doing server things. A simple post request, and we also covered some GET requests. So for a lot of your needs with a database, especially early on and when you're building a little project, the three things that we did here is really, or at least in my experience, especially more early on, it's all you really want to do when you're building a project. Excuse me. So here we're routing the requests. I like to mention that for the second parameter that you put in the routes, where messages is written and messages for author, you can make that an array and then send multiple different URL paths that will route to that handler. But we're just keeping it simple right now. So now that we have everything written out, let's test if it works. So let's run the project and get on here on Postman. And so our project did compile and run. It's beautiful. So let's first see if we have any messages. Yeah, there's no messages yet because we didn't put any. So that's perfect. So post message, and in the we have to make sure it's a post, and we'll put some body here. So there's already some here from when I was testing this earlier. So we'll put a message, hello, I hope this works, author, some guy, and we'll press send. If you're using something like the curl to send URL requests, you're going to want to put it like straight up in the URL here, and then like put like message equals and then and something else. But Postman does all this stuff for us. So yeah, we're going to send the request, and it says 200 post success, thank you Postman. Sorry for saying bro, that's what I wrote earlier, or whatever. Let's post another one just so that we'll have some things to work with here. Holla, perfect, what is up? And then we'll say it's from a guy called Bro. There's a lot of those. press. That's cool, and we'll put another message from bro. Was good. Press send, and there we go. So let's see if we have all the messages in our database. So we're going to check the request messages and press send, and so we have all of them here if we see it in JSON. Back at the request here and the responses, sorry, you can set the response type to application JSON. The content type, that would be recommended, but we didn't do that, and it doesn't really matter because we're just playing around anyways. So we have all of the message, all the posts here in JSON, so that you can really do whatever you want with it if you're on the receiving end of this from like an let's say you're turning this to like an API or something. And so let's check the messages for author. So let's try and get all the bro messages that we have, and we'll put the we'll just add this here. Let's quickly, bro. And so we got all the bro messages. So basically, all messages excluding the message from some guy. So as you can see, things are working, and that's all. So I'm gonna. This is the end of the project, and I'm gonna put this up on GitHub. I hope you got just an idea of how to get set up in Perfect here. I hope after this tutorial you're able to do it yourself, and hopefully be able to do better things, and or at least start learning how to do better things. That's the objective here. So thank you for watching, and yeah, I'll be trying to post more Perfect videos in the future. But until then, have a good day.